Okay, so welcome to the episode we're going to do on fire making in the desert. Really though, the principles of fire making are the same wherever you are. The key is, remember, preparation, preparation, preparation. There is nothing worse than putting all the effort in to maybe, whether it's with a friction fire or bone drill or whatever it is, you know, to get a little heat and an ember and or a spark or whatever it is, and then you haven't got the rest of the fire ready to go. So preparation is key. If you're in wet climates, get cover, get out of the wind. Starting fire in adverse conditions is just about practice. But before we do anything, the most important thing to remember with fire is a fire triangle, the three elements that all fires need. And first of all is heat. You've got to have a heat source. And you can generate heat in many ways. You can generate it from the heat of the sun. You can generate it through friction. You've got to have that heat. Second, you need oxygen. You've got to have oxygen to allow that flame to ignite. And thirdly, you need fuel. Okay, something that's actually then going to burn. If you starve a fire of any of these three elements, it's going to go out. So if you've only got oxygen and fuel, you know, we've got oxygen and fuel here, there's no fire. You know, you've got to have all three: heat, oxygen, and fuel. So remember that when you're preparing your fire. First of all, you need good tinder. Tinder is anything that's going to take that initial spark or that initial focal point of heat or that initial ember. It's the first point of contact for fuel, for heat, that you're going to start your fire with. You want this to be as thin and as dry and as fibrous as possible. Dry bird nests are great. You want to then really ruffle them up so you get all those tiny little fibers that are going to take that initial spark. Without good tinder, you're never going to start a fire. If you try and start a fire straight onto bigger fuel like this, it's just not going to burn. You know, you have to build your way up. When you're in a desert environment like this, that's easy because everything is dried and parched. But if you're in a jungle or you're in wet and mountainous climates, you've got to be smarter. You've got to maybe peel the bark off dead wood to get to the drier wood inside. Don't be going for any green wood. Green wood has a lot of moisture in it. It's not going to burn. Okay, so this is the first thing you need, good tinder. Then you need good kindling, and again, smaller, like I always think the size of your little finger is a good indicator. This sort of stuff. And again, a good way to judge whether kindling is good to burn is to break it. And if it sounds like the crackle of a fire, like that, you know it's going to be good for your fire. If it's just green and it kind of goes like that, it's not going to be good. So you want this crackle. And that's going to be good kindling. So that's your second thing, good kindling. And then the final thing, once you've got your kindling going, you need a bigger fuel. Anything bigger, logs, you know, one of these would be great. Here, ultimately, if I was spending the night here, you know, I know I'd build a fire under here and I've got a good fuel source. I'd actually probably start the fire right down the end where it touches the ground. And eventually, you're going to get this smouldering. Even if you fall asleep, you know you're going to still have an ember there that you can restart your fire from if you need to. Now we're ready to go. But how do you actually start that initial fire? And that is the part that is always tricky. People spend days and days and days as a group trying to start fires. You know, it's hard. If you don't do it and you've never been taught it, it's hard. But there are many different ways of doing it. I'm not going to go into detail on this lesson all the different types of friction fire. We're going to do that in other episodes when we're in the jungle and stuff. But for now, we're going to just show you a couple of simple ways. First of all, imagine one of your team has got some glasses. You can use the broken glass or the actual glass lens themselves to focal the sun into a narrow point and generate heat. Dark glasses aren't going to work, but if we use one of the glasses here, one from the crew. Okay, so look, glasses like this, and you can see, look at my hand there. See that hot spot? And all that is the sun. So we can use the lens from the glasses, and it focuses and concentrates that beam of light onto a little spot on my hand. I can even though it's only 10 in the morning here, I can feel the heat. You know, certainly by midday out here, that sun is going to be powerful enough. If I hold it and I'm patient enough, that will start a fire on this dried grass. but like I say, you don't want to do all this effort and get a flame and then you haven't got your kindling or your other fuel ready. That's why you've got to be prepared. Preparation, so key. So that would generate enough heat to start fire. You can even reflect the inside of Coke cans, polish it up, and that will reflect like a mirror and generate heat. There are even people who made fire out of ice. So they've taken the ice and they've made it into the shape of like a lens, and they've used that to concentrate the sun. Bamboo is a great resource to start fire because you can create so much friction fast with it. I would say one of the key skills of fire lighting, beyond persistence, is actually ingenuity. But what I'm going to show you today is a way you actually do it with a fire steel. If I had to take one piece of survival equipment with me into the wild, I'd probably first of all pick a good blade, actually a good knife, maybe a small machete. But beyond that, I would say a fire steel, because with fire you can do so much. It's not only going to keep you warm at night, it allows you, if you're wet, to dry out clothes, it allows you to cook food, it allows you to boil water. Boiling water in the wild is critical. You can't just be drinking water where you find it from streams or stagnant pools. You're more than likely going to get sick, so you've got to boil the water. For that you need fire. Fire, you can make tools, you can deter predators. So the ability to make fire and carry a fire steel like this is, I would say, a key weapon in a survivor's arsenal. The reason I like fire strikers like this is that they work even when they're wet. You know, you take some matches into the wild and you get wet, it starts raining, you have to do a river crossing, it's the end of the matches. Same with lighters, but a fire steel like this is going to work even when it's wet. And all this does is make that nice and simple for you, creates that spark. But it's a spark that we're going to put into this dry tinder. The tinder's going to ignite, and then we've got to be fast and we've got to be ready with the kindling. The final thing I'll say before we actually light this is build your fire off the ground. Many times I've tried to start fires in swampy areas, and if it's just wet underneath, it's going to put the fire out. So build it up a little bit, and then you're good to go. Of course, the final thing is to be very careful with forest fires. Yeah, don't mess around with those. So always protect the area you're going to do it with. Ideally, if you've got rocks, you can put rocks around it, make a fire pit. That protects the fire. We're going to light this, and we're going to put it out pretty fast because we're in a super dry area here. But what I want to do today was just show you the simple principle of fire making and how to use that fire striker. With this, the key is hold one hand steady. You know, people go like this and they end up getting the spark and they put it out with their hands. Hold one hand steady and the other hand pulls and creates the spark. And there we go, we have fire. And then I'll be putting the kindling on top of it and building it up. People ask often about the best shape to build a fire. You know, people do crisscross ones and square fires. They've actually proven the most efficient shape for building a fire is that TP one. You know, so it looks kind of like this. It's as wide at the bottom as it is high, and it's like a triangle, and that allows the heat to rise and the oxygen to flow through it. Final tip, never smother the fire once you got it going. I always think it's like children. If you put too much on, if you smother children, it kills their spirit. Same with a fire, don't smother it. Give it room and time to breathe with oxygen, and then the fire will look after you late into your night, and just like kids, late into your life. So there you go, I hope this helped. Little masterclass on our fire preparation and how to light a fire with a fire striker. I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Will, who is truly one of the best in the business.
Even at school, mid-teens, intrigued with helicopters, intrigued with the military, so signed up straight after school.
Michael B. Jordan, you dropped us into big seas then, do you remember that?
Yeah, it was a rough old day.
And then you had an incident that obviously changed your life. In a heartbeat though, you're in the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Upside down?
Yep, in the dark.
I always think that great helicopter pilots have a history, and it's what made them smart, and it's what's made them often good. And that's why we use a lot of former military pilots, and Will is one of those. Who did you originally join when you joined the military?
I was Royal Navy in the Fleet Air Arm. So I ended up front line on the Lynx off the back of frigates and destroyers.
And did you want to do that from a young age? What brought you into the Navy?
Yeah, I did. I have, even at school, mid-teens, intrigued with helicopters, intrigued with the military. So yeah, I signed up straight after school, went in.
Will is always so sort of modest, but is incredibly competitive to become a Royal Navy pilot. How did you deal with all of that intense competition?
Yeah, the standards were high, and then throughout training, it's a shame you get really close to the guys. It takes a few years, and slowly but surely people drop off and fail as they go along. So we had a pretty high attrition rate.
And then you went to fly on ships?
It's run very differently to the Royal Air Force, where it's about the aircraft. The aircraft is there to support as a team. Very similar with the Army Air Corps as well. So we were the eyes of the ship and the fleet ahead.
And talk to sort of some of the flying you had to do there, what it's like flying in winter, bad conditions, trying to land on a little ship.
Every day is different, and the weather conditions, day, night, suddenly a fog bank comes in. You're the Met man on the ship, so it's very embarrassing when you've given the captain the brief the night before that weather's going to be good and you get woken up by the foghorn. That's usually promptly followed by pilot to the captain's cabin. Mildly embarrassing. The role was exciting, challenging, and hairy at times.
Yeah, and then you had a incident that obviously changed your life forever.
Yeah, we were going out on a night submarine exercise. We'd got into the aircraft. We'd had a couple of weeks of storms leading up to it, and we were still in this long, protracted storm that was battering the south coast, about 30 miles off the south coast of England.
At night in bad weather in February, that's a cold place to be, 30 miles offshore there.
Yeah, a very cold, dark place. So we made sure we had a thermos flask with us. And the two of us, myself and my observer, we got out in the aircraft. And so we got the engine started. We were strapped to the deck. Unbeknownst to us, the engineers had reported that the ship stabiliser had been tripping out that night, that we didn't know about. And they needed to alter the course of the ship as well. So that combined together, the ship rolled so heavily, we snapped our lashings and slid onto the side of the ship and rolled off the back.
And what? And the ship just changed course, rolled, and it snapped the lashings?
Yeah, so we felt the right-hand wheel come off the deck and slam back down, then the next roll was so much that the lashings gave way on the right side. As we rolled onto our side, the two of us jettisoned our doors, and there are quick release handles on the front of the Lynx doors, so we jettisoned, got rid of our doors, and before we knew it, we were upside down. We rolled onto our side, and then slid across the deck and rolled upside down into the water.
In a heartbeat though, you're in the water?
Yeah, absolutely.
Upside down?
Yep, in the dark.
So we had freezing water. So what's first thing that goes through your brain?
The force of the water coming into the aircraft was enough to rip my helmet off my head.
Rip the helmet off your
head?
head?
Yeah, they found when they recovered the aircraft a week or so later, my helmet was in the back of the cab.
And it had been fitted on and everything?
It was on. The strap was slightly worn and torn. So yeah, it's a forceful impact of water that comes in, and the cab's full virtually instantly.
Your training kicked in faster to get that door. At least you got that door off.
Yeah, absolutely. And the training we do what's
Why is that? Why is the door so key?
Just because if it gets distorted when it hits the water, or you have an accident like that, if it gets distorted and stuck, then you're stuck inside. So to give ourselves a clear access out before we hit the water was great. And when I swam out, I was stuck on something, so I had to swim back in, sit back down, disconnect that. And before I could disconnect that, I was starting to run out of breath. So again, on your life jacket, you carry a little oxygen bottle. Got that out. Purged that, started breathing underwater, and then disconnected my life raft and swam out without that.
God, I mean that's presence of mind though, to go for that and be able to.
So it was a busy minute or so under there.
And you managed to free yourself, swim out, and your co-pilot,
Rob, my navigator, he was already out. He was in his dinghy. Really, the one thing that got to me there was the noise of the sea, the swell. You're out there, you feel pretty vulnerable. By the time I got out, it was just the stabiliser right at the back of the aircraft that was sticking out of the water. The rest was fully submerged. And that soon disappeared. And then, so I managed to get hold of Rob by shouting, and he shouted back. So after a few minutes of sort of swimming, doggy paddling, whatever, on my back, just trying to get to him, managed to grab hold of his life raft. And then the ship turned around. By that point, it looks like the ship's a million miles away, but it soon turned itself around, and seaboat was launched into the water, and they came and got us. We were in the water for about half an hour.
That's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you must have been hypothermic by half an hour in winter water.
We were, again, the survival equipment you're given was fantastic. So we were in full waterproof submersible suits and like a thick jumper but bodysuit underneath. So we were pretty warm, but again, by the time we were out, we were mildly hypothermic.
It's amazing, even with all that gear, and everything working, you're still basically hypothermic pretty quick.
You haven't got long, but again, without it, You know, if you're
Yeah,
a
you're
civilian
dead
in a
fast.
white shirt and a just pair of trousers and you go in, then you've
Yeah.
got a much more limited amount of time. So all the kit worked. It was fantastic, and it saved us why we're here today.
And that ultimately led to you eventually leaving the Navy.
Yeah, I left fairly shortly after that.
You know, the Navy's loss was our gain, and we get to, you know, go around and do so many fun adventures with Will.
That
I
was
think
great
I was
fun,
thinking
yeah.
on the way up here, some of the ones we've had, like, you know, we did maybe the Anthony Joshua one, the great boxer.
That was fabulous. Yeah, it was lifting him off the ground and yourself, and
That was an
going
undersling
around
onto Commando Ridge.
Yeah,
In the UK.
fantastic.
Pretty cool.
He's the heaviest human I've ever lifted.
Yeah.
Once I could
Solid-
actually feel
solid
him
muscle,
under
that
there.
man.
Yeah, it was that was
Um,
great, and it was a great location. Warwick Davis, obviously.
Probably the lightest one you've
Yeah,
done. Warwick,
absolutely.
about. Michael B. Jordan, you dropped us into, we rappelled out into big seas then, do you remember that?
Yeah, it was a rough old
Off
day.
North. That was right, and he was really very nervous after that. We had a rough swim ashore. And
Yeah, he got
I
tumbled
thought out of
in
all
the-
the stuff we've done, your piloting was incredible. On that one especially, it was super windy, low visibility, hovering over the sea, spray everywhere, a lot on the line, a lot of pressure, and you were amazing on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well
No,
done.
it was a great day. That was a challenging day. And then to watch you get as you swam in, and you got properly goffered on the way out of the water, didn't you?
Yeah, it's good fun. There you go, guys. The legend that is Will Banks, former Royal Navy helicopter pilot, great friend to us, key part of our crew. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Come on. Awesome. We are heading out to Brownsea Island, the site of the first ever scout camp that we talked about, and to find out a bit more about this incredible man's life and his upbringing and some of his adventures. But these stories are going to blow your mind. Be ready.
So have you ever actually been on that island there?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was writing my first ever book, and I just got back from Everest.
Yeah.
Was just leaving the military, and I heard about this island in Poole Harbour, and I thought that would be a cool place to try and
Yeah.
write a book. Tracked down the owners, said,
Yeah,
could
yeah.
I winter sit it for you? I chop some logs, I look after the place, caretake it.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, I needed a boat. I was walking along the Thames in London with one of my great buddies. I
Yeah.
just met Shara.
Yeah.
Okay, so we weren't married, I just met her, I thought she's a great girl. We started going out. As I walked along the river path, I saw this old rickety fishing boat, like much smaller than this.
Yeah.
Like covered in rust and weeds and
Bird poo everywhere. Yeah.
and a little 20 horsepower on the back. And it said, for sale, 600 quid.
Bloody hell.
And the name of the boat,
What?
Shara.
Oh really?
Shara.
No.
Pretty unusual name.
Yeah.
It was a sign.
Yeah.
It was a
It
sign.
was a-
So I bought the boat.
You
and
had
I
to
used
buy
that
the boat,
boat
yeah.
to go from there
Yeah.
to Green Island over there, which is that little
Oh, is that
island.
one there?
That's it. And I spent the winter there and wrote my first ever book on Green
Yeah,
Island. And then the fact that I was right
Everything
next to
came together.
Brownsea,
Yeah.
who would know that I'd go on to you know,
become
end up
Chief
as
Scout.
all of that stuff. So this is a place that's close to my heart. So to bring you here,
Yeah.
I love.
No, I get a sense that there's something spiritual here. It's a special place, man. It really is.
This
Yeah.
is Brownsea Island. So what was your upbringing like, Dwayne?
I started off life very free. I started off life as this almost feral kid growing up in Jamaica, had woodlands, fields, forests all around me, and that was a dream. And you imagine picking up that kid and dropping me in London. And I remember it being such a shock to get off that plane, and the entire way home I was looking for the fields and I was looking for the forest, because when you're a kid, you
hadn't really
expect that.
been to a city.
No, never. I mean, I didn't even know buildings had more than 2 floors.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking, right, there's no woods, there's no trees, there's no forests. Where are they? And I remember the very first time I stepped foot in the house. And when I opened the curtains, it was this concrete space, which was like 3 meters by 6 meters or whatever it was. And I thought, this is the saddest thing that I could see, that I could find out here. I struggled to make friends. I didn't know how things worked. I couldn't find a place in the new world I'd come into. I realized at that point, I couldn't survive in this world being Dwayne, being the Dwayne Fields from rural Jamaica. I had to adapt, I had to change. I had to succumb to what everyone else was and just be like them. And the saddest thing is I carried on that behavior, that process all the way through from that age to 20, 21 years old. And I think it got me in a few scrapes. It got me stabbed.
So what happened then?
I was out with some friends, and maybe 6 or 7 boys, local boys, to the area that we were in, came into the venue we were at and instantly started some trouble. So I looked at my friends, I said, look, let's just go. You guys go outside, go to the car, I'll get the others and then we'll leave. I went back, got 2 more of my friends, and we started walking down the road to avoid these guys, and they chased us. I decided to stop and try to reason with them. I said, look guys, I'm not running. I have no problems with you. And before I could finish, I felt a stab to my lower stomach. And out of the blue, the car that my friends drove in came. I got into the car, and just as I sat in, I felt, nah, and someone stabbed me there as well. So literally that much more, and it would have gone straight round into my neck. I've had a gun pulled on me. I built a moped from scratch, built this thing, bought some parts, found some parts at a scrapyard, put this thing together, and I sent my younger brother out to test ride it this time because that's what they're there for. And,
Obviously.
Yeah, of course. And it works perfectly. And some boys a few minutes away from us took the bike, and he's pushed off of it. And I marched onto this estate, which is probably the stupidest thing that you could do. But I thought to myself, that's mine, I worked on it, I put effort into it, I put time into it. And I demanded it back, snatched it out of his hand. And again, foolishly thinking, that'll be the end of it. I've got my bike back, I've won. He pushed me as I went to walk away, and out of anger, frustration, I don't know, a lifetime of just pent up aggression, I turned around and I pushed him back. And out of embarrassment, he walked away and he came back with a loaded gun about a minute or 2 later. And he was maybe 4 or 5 meters away from me. And he pointed the gun at me, and I stood up, pushed my brother to the side, and before I could say you don't have to, I heard a click. And he cocked it, and I saw a bullet come out the side. And he did it again. And before he could do it a 3rd time, the guys that were there kind of grabbed him, 7 or 8 other people kind of grabbed him and said, "No, you don't have to." And I remember being so thankful that it misfired both times. And I remember on the way home, I couldn't believe it had misfired both times. I kept stopping and just double checking, maybe I'm bleeding, I don't know it. And the biggest issue wasn't that he'd tried to shoot me. The biggest issue was that so many people around me were saying, "Dwayne, you need to get this guy back. Dwayne, he tried to get you, you need to, do something." And I thought, I don't want to. I just want to be me. I want to be real version of myself. I'm happy I'm here. I want to stop people like him doing that to other people. I want to stop other people turning into people like him. That's the world I grew up in. That's what some of my experiences were.
To have 2 misfires like that on a live, I mean, that's, somebody was looking out for you.
Yeah.
And somebody wanted you around for so much more, and look what the sort of fruit of your life has been, the legacy of so much you've done since has been.
There's been so many instances where I've been very lucky and are blessed, fortunate, and
Tell
I've
me
survived.
about the time you were homeless.
I've been homeless twice. I think the last time I was homeless, I was kicked out of the house. My mum had a very difficult time with my father and my come about in this world. And it all erupted one night. She said, "Look, just get out and go." And I left home. I left with a bag on my back and a black bin bag in my hand. Sometimes we carry a shame that we shouldn't have to carry. Like being homeless isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a situation that you're in. But I felt shame. I felt ashamed. So I walked. I remember I walked from North London to South London and back again, so I wouldn't have to sleep in the park on the bench. I think it was day 5 or 6. I snuck onto a train. And I spent the whole night terrified that maybe there's going to be an engineer or cleaners, they're going to kick me off, I'm going to get in trouble. But in the morning, this man, I'm going to say he's a Sikh man because he had a turban on, he froze and I froze, and I thought, right, he's going to yell at me. He looked at me and he said, "You okay?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Did you sleep there?" And I said, "Yes." And he showed me a ring and he said, "You see this ring?" He said, "It's a nice ring, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it's a nice ring." He said, "Well, that had to be beaten and burnt and bent to make it beautiful." And he said to me, "That's probably what's happening to you." And the moment I stepped off the train, I felt like, actually, maybe he's right. Maybe there's something bigger. Maybe there's a reason why I'm going through all of this. Got myself together, and I just went on this amazing journey where I just wanted to do more and be more and see more and offer more.
And how did you go from that to ending up standing on top of the world at the North Pole?
So I was looking for something to do that I can stand on a platform and shout, you know, there's another way, there's other things you can do. And I saw Ben Fogle and James Cracknell talking on BBC Breakfast one morning about rowing across the Atlantic, and their next plan was to go to the South Pole. And I didn't pay much attention until I heard we're looking for a third member to join our team. I thought, wow. Even I reached out a few weeks later and I was told, look, selections have started to be unfair to put you in now. Would you consider going to the North Pole? So I just said, yeah. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know what training, what equipment, I didn't know what skills I'd need, but I just said yeah because it was a way out.
And then how long was the expedition? What was that like?
This expedition was epic. It was 22 days of the coldest weather I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, it was trekking 18 hours a day.
Wow.
It was sleeping on ice. It was waking up and your sleeping bags covered in ice. It was so many horrible things, but it was so great at the same time because I felt like I was doing what was meant for me and what was natural for me.
And
so
do you remember the actual North Pole moment?
I remember the moment arriving at the Mag North and looking at it and thinking, damn, that bit of ice looks the exact same as a bit of ice 100, 200, 300, 400 miles back that way. But honestly, for me, it was so symbolic because it was, we are at the point that I set myself the target to get to. And now I can go back and say to all the naysayers and all the people who supported me, look, I did it. You thought I couldn't. Imagine what else you think you can't do. Think about how you can make it happen.
So what would you say to the young Dwayne that's just been stabbed?
Young Dwayne that's just been stabbed, don't wait so long, go and chase your dreams now. I'd say to young Dwayne, be confident. You are better, you're more equipped, you're more adaptable, you're more dynamic, you're more confident than you might even think. And I'd say that to any other young person out there.
Is that what your foundation does? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the foundation's brilliant. The foundation's about finding young people just like me who are from disadvantaged backgrounds. It doesn't matter what colour you are, what beliefs you believe. It's just if you're coming from a place where opportunities might not be so readily available, we're looking for you and we're going to support you, and we're taking the first group ever to Antarctica this year. We've got enough money to take 10 young people. It's going ahead. I've put everything in place. We've fundraised. I've walked the length of Britain to raise money for this. So it's gonna happen. It's definitely happening. We're taking at least 10 people. We're still fundraising for more.
What I know is that Baden Powell and all of the scouting family around the world are going to be so inspired to hear your story, and he would be listening just going, wow, this is what scouting is about. It's about that spirit of never give up.
Absolutely.
However hard life gets, and you are such a living embodiment of that and a great inspiration to so many of us, and we've always got your back. We're going to cheer you on, and thank you for all you do for so many.
No, thanks to Scouts. They came to me at a time when I needed the support. I needed a family, I needed a support network, and I needed friends. And you know, I was 7, 8 years old, couldn't find friends in school, couldn't make friends outside of school, a fish out of water, and I found a place within the Scouts.
And that is what scouting is about. Give
Sweet.
us a hug.
Come on, man.
We love
Bring
you
it
very much. Okay, so it's 8 a.m. and we're going to try and get Dwayne up tandem with Jack. I'm going to fly. We've got Jesse over there as well. And then Dwayne's heading home. So to give him a fun final adventure experience with the team, let's do it.
Right now I'm feeling a bit of excitement, a bit of apprehension.
Of course, natural.
But I want to go. And I think that's the key thing. I want to go and do this.
Put this on like a backpack.
Yeah, you are good.
Take a step back.
Step back.
That was something else.
There you go, huh?
Fantastic. Best thing ever.
Smashed it.
Oh, that was amazing.
It was pretty cool, isn't it?
Have I not done this before?
I know.
Even now, I'm excited. I'm having fun. It was brilliant.
Yeah, well done. Jack, great flying as always.